Beloved chosen one, stop scrolling for a moment. Breathe. This message did not arrive by accident. You are standing at a crossroads where heaven is asking you a quiet but dangerous question. Will you continue trusting a system that has never truly protected you? Or will you finally trust the God who has kept you alive when the numbers never made sense? You have tried to play by the rules. You worked hard, stayed late, said yes when your body wanted to say no. You believed that if you followed the system, degrees, titles, promotions, savings accounts, you would finally feel safe. Yet even when you did everything right, the ground kept shifting beneath your feet. Jobs disappeared. Markets changed. People you trusted failed you. And still, you are here. Still breathing. Still standing. You were never designed to be sustained by the world's system. You were designed to be financed by heaven. Look back honestly, there were moments when the math did not work. Bills were due, income was late. Logic said you should collapse. Yet rent was paid, food appeared. Strength showed up when you had none left. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. Heaven has been quietly funding your journey long before you acknowledged it. Picture a familiar scene. Late at night, you sit at the kitchen table, laptop open, staring at your bank account. You refresh the screen, hoping numbers will change. Anxiety tightens your chest. Thoughts creep in. Maybe I should compromise. Maybe I should take the job that drains my soul. Maybe I should betray what I know is right just to survive. In that ordinary moment, a holy battle is taking place not in the sky, but in your mind. The system says, secure yourself at all costs. God whispers, trust me, even when it costs you. This is why you have always felt different. You cannot fully surrender to systems built on fear, debt, comparison, and control. Your spirit resists it. You were never meant to be owned by credit scores or the approval of supervisors who cannot see your calling. You are marked, and marked ones disrupt broken systems. As the ancient words declare in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. That sentence confronts everything the world taught you. The system worships understanding, data, forecasts, and guarantees. God asks for trust first, clarity later. That is why this journey feels uncomfortable. Faith is not your backup plan. It is your primary currency. Think about your family. Maybe you are the responsible one, the one everyone leans on. You feel pressure to always have answers. You worry not just about yourself, but about parents, children, siblings. You whisper at night, if I fail, everyone suffers. The weight is heavy, but hear this clearly, you were never meant to carry provision alone. Heaven never asked you to replace God. You were asked to obey Him. When responsibility turns into control, fear takes over. When you return control to God, peace begins to grow. Not shallow peace, real peace that steadies your hands when circumstances remain unstable. Some doors closed for a reason. Jobs you didn't get. Contracts that fell apart. Ideas that stalled. You called them failures. But many were protections. If you had succeeded too early inside a corrupt system, it would have owned you. Delay was mercy. Let me ask you directly, if visible security disappeared tomorrow, would your faith disappear with it? That question reveals where your hope truly lives. Hope misplaced creates anxiety. Hope anchored in God produces endurance. Now see hope clearly. Imagine waking up without dread. Imagine making decisions from conviction, not panic. Imagine provision arriving through ideas, timing, and connections because you moved when God said move. This is the economy of heaven. It does not shout. It flows. You are not late. You are not behind. You are being repositioned. If this message speaks to you, like and share it so others trapped in fear can hear truth. Subscribe to stay connected, and at the end of this video, type 777 in the comments, not superstition, but a declaration that you choose trust over fear, obedience over panic, heaven over the system. You are not surviving by luck. You are being sustained by purpose. Do not underestimate this moment. What feels like uncertainty is actually alignment. Heaven is adjusting your path, so what sustains you tomorrow will not enslave you later. Stay steady. What is coming will require courage, not panic. You are never abandoned in the waiting. You are being trained to recognize God's voice above noise. Hold your position. When provision comes, it will confirm not only survival but calling, clarity, and quiet authority. Chosen one, this season of lack did not arrive to humiliate you. It arrived to educate you. There are lessons that abundance cannot teach, disciplines that comfort will never develop. Right now, God is not asking you to escape the season quickly. He is asking you to live correctly inside it. Living right in a season of shortage begins with honesty, not panic, not denial. Honesty. You look at what you have without shame and without exaggeration. You stop pretending you are fine, and you stop speaking death over yourself. You say, "This is where I am, and God is still with me." That sentence alone restores dignity to your posture. One practical way this looks in daily life is how you manage your mornings. When resources are tight, anxiety loves to wake up before you do. Instead of immediately checking balances, messages, or news, you pause. Even if it is only 2 minutes, you ground yourself, you breathe. You remind your nervous system that you are not in danger, you are in training. Peace becomes an act of obedience. Scripture speaks clearly through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 37, verse 19. In days of famine they will enjoy plenty. Notice it does not say famine disappears instantly. It says you are sustained inside it. Another discipline is learning to separate needs from noise. In lack, everything feels urgent, but not everything is essential. You begin asking simple questions before spending, before agreeing, before committing. Do I need this, or am I trying to soothe fear? This alone can save you emotionally and financially. Self-control is not restriction, it is protection. Consider a very ordinary situation. You are offered extra work, more hours, more pressure, but it violates your values or drains your health. The system tells you, take it or starve. God asks, will you trust me with restraint? Sometimes obedience looks like saying no, even when money is involved. This is not recklessness, it is alignment. Living right in lack also means maintaining excellence even when results are delayed. You still show up on time, you still do honest work, you still speak with integrity. Not because it earns immediate reward, but because it preserves who you are becoming. Character is expensive, but compromise is costlier. At home, this season teaches communication. Instead of carrying silent stress, you learn to speak calmly with family about limits. You explain choices. You set expectations. This builds unity instead of fear. Lack does not have to fracture relationships. Secrecy does. Another practical instruction is to steward your energy as carefully as your money. In lean seasons, exhaustion multiplies despair. You learn to rest without guilt. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who do not need details. Silence becomes strategic. Not everyone needs access to your process. You also learn gratitude without pretending. Gratitude in lack is not forced positivity. It is precise appreciation. You thank God for small, tangible things: a meal, a conversation, a safe night, a working body. This recalibrates your mind to recognize provision instead of absence. The Apostle Paul wrote in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 8, God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. Notice again what you need, not everything you want and not always all at once. A key practice in this season is obedience before clarity. You will feel prompted to simplify, to release, to prepare quietly. You may not understand why yet. Do it anyway. Packing less is sometimes preparation for movement. Ask yourself directly, what habits would I abandon if abundance returned tomorrow, and why am I still clinging to them now? Lack exposes attachments that comfort hid. You also learn to receive without shame. When help comes, advice, opportunity, generosity, you accept it with humility, not embarrassment. Pride resists provision. Gratitude multiplies it. This season is temporary, but the wisdom is permanent. You are learning how to live without being ruled by fear. When provision increases, this training will keep you free. Do not rush the lesson. You are being refined, not rejected. Remain patient with yourself. Growth in this season is often invisible. You may not feel stronger, but you are steadier. You may not see progress, but your reactions are changing. That quiet stability is evidence that God is rebuilding your inner foundation. Pay attention to small obediences. Returning a call, keeping a promise, finishing a task with care, these are not insignificant. In seasons of lack, God often measures faithfulness in details, not outcomes. What you steward now prepares you for weight later. Remember, this lack is not your identity, and struggle is not your destiny. This chapter is teaching you how to walk without fear of loss. When abundance arrives, it will meet a person who knows how to carry it wisely. Chosen one. There comes a moment when God begins to expose the difference between provision and control. Up to now, you may have thought they were the same. A paycheck felt like safety. A contract felt like peace. A system felt like stability. But heaven is now teaching you something deeper. Control is not security, and provision does not need permission from systems. This is the stage where many people become confused. They say, I trust God, yet their decisions are still ruled by fear of losing human structures. God is not condemning you for that. He is confronting it. Because what is coming next in your life cannot be carried by old frameworks. You begin to notice it in subtle ways. You no longer feel excited by opportunities that once thrilled you. The offer looks good on paper, but something inside feels heavy. You ask yourself, why am I unsettled when this is supposed to be a blessing? The answer is simple. Heaven's economy and Earth's economy run on different currencies. Earth's system runs on leverage, pressure, debt, image, and urgency. Heaven's economy runs on obedience, timing, trust, and alignment. One exhausts you, the other strengthens you. The Word of God declares in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 18, But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth. Read that slowly. Ability comes from God, not systems. Systems only distribute what heaven authorizes. Let's make this practical. Imagine you are at work and leadership announces changes, restructuring, budget cuts, new targets. Fear ripples through the room. People begin competing, performing, positioning, and you feel the pressure to prove your worth, to protect your place. But something inside you stays calm, not passive calm. You still work diligently, but you refuse to panic. That calm is not denial. It is discernment. Heaven is teaching you not to confuse activity with alignment. This is also why comparison no longer satisfies you. You see others advancing quickly, earning more, displaying success, yet instead of envy, you feel a strange distance, not superiority distance. God is separating your measure from theirs. Their pace is not your pace, their path is not your proof. Here is where many stumble. They think trusting God means rejecting structure altogether. That is not wisdom. God uses systems, but He refuses to let them become your source. When systems serve Him, they are tools. When they replace Him, they become traps. A daily example of this lesson appears in how you plan your future. You still plan, you still budget, you still prepare, but you stop obsessing. You stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios. You stop anchoring your identity to projections. Planning becomes partnership, not pressure. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Romans, chapter 11, verse 36. For from Him and through Him and for Him are all things. That includes income, opportunities, and outcomes. Now let me ask you something directly. If God asked you to walk away from a secure option tomorrow, would you trust that His economy could replace it, or would fear immediately argue? This is not a theoretical question. Many chosen ones face it quietly. Sometimes obedience looks like staying. Sometimes it looks like leaving. The key difference is who is leading the decision. You may notice that provision now comes in unconventional forms: ideas, timing, conversations, delayed expenses, unexpected grace. It does not always look impressive, but it is precise. Heaven rarely overpays, but it never underprovides. There is also a humbling aspect to this economy. God removes the illusion that you earned everything yourself. This is not to shame you, but to free you. When you stop carrying the burden of being your own source, creativity returns, peace returns, joy returns. This is why enemies, critics, even family members may not understand your calm. They expect you to be anxious. They expect you to chase what they chase. But you are operating under a different government now. Before this section closes, I want you to participate not mechanically, but consciously. In the comments, write this short phrase: God is enough. Do not type it as a slogan. Type it as a confession. By doing so, you are not denying responsibility, you are rejecting fear-based control. You are reminding your own spirit that heaven's economy is already active in your life. Even when the system trembles, you are not behind. You are not reckless. You are learning how to live supplied without being enslaved. And once this lesson settles, nothing the world shakes will shake you the same way again. When you write God is enough, you are not claiming you no longer need money, work, or structure. You are declaring that none of those are your master. It means your peace no longer depends on outcomes, and your trust is anchored beyond systems that rise and fall. Chosen one, this is the moment where trust stops being an idea and becomes a separation. Not loud, not dramatic, quiet but irreversible. God does not always remove you suddenly from familiar ground. Sometimes He loosens your grip first. What you are feeling now is not confusion, it is detachment. And detachment always comes before elevation. There is a subtle grief in this stage. You begin to realize that what once made you feel safe no longer does. Old routines, familiar guarantees, predictable structures, they start to feel hollow, not evil, just insufficient. And that realization hurts because you invested years believing they would hold you forever. This is the test of trust. Separation rarely looks spiritual from the outside. It looks like unanswered emails. It looks like fewer invitations. It looks like standing still while others rush ahead. It looks like choosing integrity when shortcuts are available. It looks like staying honest when exaggeration would help. These are not punishments. These are filters. Consider a very real situation. You are offered stability, but it comes with a quiet compromise. No one would notice. No one would call it wrong. Yet your spirit tightens. You feel the tension in your chest. That tension is not fear. It is discernment. God is asking whether you trust Him enough to let go of what looks safe but pulls you out of alignment. The system rewards speed. Heaven rewards precision. This is also the season where loneliness can creep in. Not because you are unlovable, but because you are no longer compatible with certain environments. Conversations feel shallow. Goals feel misaligned. You smile, but you do not feel seen. This is not rejection. This is refinement. Gold is separated from debris before it shines. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 7. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in Him. Notice the word confidence. Not desperation, not guessing, confidence. Trust matures into confidence when you stop needing constant reassurance. At home, this separation may look like simpler living. Fewer distractions. More intentional choices. You begin to value peace over appearance, rest over performance, alignment over applause. This is not withdrawal. It is recalibration. At work, it may look like being misunderstood. You are steady while others scramble. You refuse to panic. You do not join gossip or fear cycles. You focus on what is assigned to you and release what is not. That calm confuses people who survive on urgency, but heaven recognizes it as maturity. Here is the truth many are afraid to say. God sometimes removes the illusion of safety so you can discover real security. Real security is not found in predictability. It is found in presence. When you know God is with you, uncertainty loses its power to terrify. This is why you are being asked to trust without guarantees. Guarantees create dependency. Trust creates partnership. Now, let me speak gently. You may be tempted to run back to what is familiar just to feel grounded again. Resist that urge. Familiar does not mean faithful. Comfortable does not mean cold. If you return too early, you will feel relief, but you will also feel smaller. And you were not designed to shrink. Hope does not disappear in this season. It becomes quieter, steadier, deeper. Hope begins to look like resilience, like waking up and choosing obedience again, like continuing even when affirmation is delayed. If you listen closely, you will notice that heaven is inviting you, not forcing you into deeper alignment. Like a door left open, like a lamp left on, like a path gently lit. You are not being dragged forward. You are being welcomed. If this voice feels like a lantern on a dark road, you are free to keep it near. Some choose to leave a quiet mark, like a stone placed by the path, so others know the way is safe. Some pass the light forward, not losing it, but multiplying it. And some decide to walk this road again, returning whenever the journey grows heavy. Not because they must, but because it feels like home. Before this section closes, ask yourself one honest question: am I willing to release what feels safe if it keeps me from becoming who I am called to be? Your answer will shape the next chapter. Separation is not loss, it is positioning. And trust, real trust, always leads somewhere higher than you could have climbed alone. What you are releasing now is not being wasted. It is being exchanged. God is trading false safety for lasting strength, surface comfort for deep confidence, and borrowed certainty for a trust that will not collapse under pressure. Walk forward without rushing. The ground may feel unfamiliar, but it is firm. Each step you take in obedience is quietly lifting you higher, even when the elevation cannot yet be seen. There is a story in Scripture that only makes sense to people who have stood at the edge of lack and still chose obedience. It is the story of the woman of Zarephath. She was not powerful. She was not wealthy. She was not spiritually famous. She was a widow in a famine, living on the last of what she had, preparing a final meal for herself and her son before expecting death. This is where heaven enters the scene, not with sympathy but with instruction. The prophet Elijah meets her not when she is abundant, but when she is empty. He does not bring her food. He brings her a word. And the word sounds unreasonable. Give first. Not after you survive. Not after you feel safe. First. The ancient record tells us in the first book of Kings, chapter 17, verse 13. Do not be afraid. Go home and do as you have said, but first make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me. This is the pattern of heaven's financing. Provision follows obedience, not comfort. The woman had a choice that many chosen ones face quietly today. She could protect what little she had and still lose it, or she could obey with what seemed insufficient and step into supernatural supply. Her miracle did not begin when more flour appeared. It began when she moved with what was already in her hands. Now bring this story into your daily life. You may not be holding flour and oil, but you are holding time, skills, integrity, attention, effort, obedience. And there are moments when God asks you to move before the numbers change, to apply before you feel ready, to give kindness when you feel depleted, to act in faith when logic says conserve. Consider a very real modern situation. You are low on finances, yet you feel prompted to help someone share information, recommend an opportunity, show generosity with time or resources. Fear whispers, you can't afford this. Faith asks, can you afford disobedience like the widow? You stand between self-preservation and surrender. The miracle does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like the bill that should have been impossible being delayed. Sometimes it looks like steady work instead of sudden wealth. Sometimes it looks like peace replacing panic. But it comes. This section is about a law you cannot bypass. Heaven does not finance hesitation. It finances obedience. At work, this may look like doing the right thing even when cutting corners would help you advance faster. You show up with excellence when no one is watching. You refuse to lie, exaggerate, or manipulate outcomes. And strangely, opportunities begin finding you instead of you chasing them. In family life, obedience may look like humility. Apologizing first, choosing patience when stress is high, creating stability emotionally even when finances are tight. These choices seem unrelated to provision, but they are not. Alignment attracts supply. In your inner life, obedience may look like letting go of bitterness, envy, or comparison. Those emotions drain more than any expense. Releasing them creates room for clarity, and clarity is expensive currency in heaven's economy. The widow of Zarephath did not know how the story would end. She only knew what she was asked to do next. And that is often how God leads you, one faithful step, not a full explanation. Ask yourself this directly: what is God asking me to do? Now that feels risky because I feel low. Do not over-spiritualize it. The answer is usually simple and uncomfortable. Make the call. Finish the task. Give the effort. Speak the truth. Apply. Serve. Rest. Obey. Here is the hope you need to hold on to. God never drains obedience without replenishment. The jar did not overflow dramatically, but it never ran dry. That is sustainable provision, quiet, daily, faithful supply. Many people miss their miracle because they are waiting for abundance to feel obedient. But Scripture shows the opposite. Obedience creates the environment where abundance can safely arrive. If this message mirrors your current season, if you feel like you are holding just enough for one more meal, understand this. Heaven is watching what you do with what remains. Not to judge you, but to partner with you. Before this section closes, I invite you to mark this moment. In the comments, write the number 888. Not as superstition, but as a sign of alignment, declaring that you believe provision follows obedience, even when supply looks small. Let it remind you and others reading that heaven still finances faithful steps. You are not foolish for obeying when resources feel thin. You are brave, and like the woman of Zarephath, you are about to discover that what you feared would end you becomes the doorway to sustained provision. Chosen one. There is a strange and often uncomfortable phase that comes after obedience begins to bear fruit. It is the moment when others notice that you are still standing, still steady, still progressing, even though they cannot identify where your support is coming from. This is not coincidence. This is consequence. You are entering a season where your life becomes a question mark to people who once had answers for everything. They assumed you would collapse without certain systems, relationships, or advantages. They expected exhaustion, panic, compromise. Instead, they see endurance. And endurance without visible backing unsettles those who rely on appearances. This is where silence becomes wisdom. When God sustains you without obvious help, He is teaching you restraint. You learn not to explain your process to skeptics. You stop defending your choices. You stop justifying your calm, not because you are hiding, but because sacred provision does not need public approval. Consider a common scenario. A former colleague hears you left a stable role. They ask, politely but pointedly, "So what are you doing now?" The question is not curiosity, it is evaluation. They are measuring whether your faith failed. You answer simply. You do not embellish. You do not overshare. And when they cannot categorize you, discomfort surfaces. That discomfort is not your responsibility. The ancient words recorded in the book of Romans chapter 8, verse 31, still echo today: if God is for us, who can be against us? This verse is not a challenge shouted outward. It is an anchor held inward. In this season, God is also teaching you how to recognize false urgency. People will try to pull you back into panic-based decisions because your peace exposes their anxiety. They may question your timing, your pace, your lack of visible struggle. Not everyone who questions you wants to understand you. Your job is not to convince them. Your job is to remain aligned. At work, you may notice subtle resistance. You are not competing aggressively, yet you advance. You are not campaigning, yet your work is recognized. This can trigger insecurity in environments built on rivalry. Stay humble, stay focused. Do not dim your light to soothe others, but do not weaponize it either. In your personal life, some relationships may shift. Friends who bonded with you over stress may feel distance now that you are calmer. This is natural. Shared anxiety is not a sustainable foundation. Do not resent the distance. Honor the season for what it is. There is also a refining of motives happening within you. When provision comes without applause, you discover whether you truly wanted peace or praise. God removes spectators so He can work on substance. What grows in private lasts longer in public. Another daily example: you face a decision that could elevate you faster if you promoted yourself aggressively. You choose restraint. You let your work speak. This is not passivity. It is trust. And trust creates a reputation that manipulation never can. This season teaches you to measure success differently, not by speed, but by sustainability, not by recognition, but by resilience. You begin to ask better questions. Is my soul still intact? Is my integrity still clean? Is my peace increasing or shrinking? Enemies watching you rise without visible support will often respond in one of three ways: dismissal, imitation, or accusation. Some will minimize what they cannot explain. Some will copy your behaviors without your convictions. Some will accuse you of arrogance simply because you are not frantic. Let them. You are not called to manage reactions. You are called to remain faithful. God is also training you to resist pride. Invisible support can tempt you to feel superior. Guard against this. Remember how you felt when resources were thin. Compassion keeps provision flowing. Arrogance clogs it. Hope becomes very practical in this stage. You realize that being sustained quietly is safer than being elevated loudly. You learn to value consistency over spectacle, and this prepares you for influence that does not collapse under pressure. Ask yourself this question: if no one ever applauded this season, would I still choose obedience? Your answer reveals whether your foundation is solid. The fact that others are watching means your life is becoming a testimony whether you intend it or not. Not a loud one, a credible one. One that whispers, there is another way to live. Stay steady, stay grateful, stay quiet when necessary. Heaven is not finished showing what faithful alignment can sustain. What God is building in you now cannot be rushed or replicated. It is forming depth, not display. When the time comes for visibility, you will not scramble to prove anything. You will simply stand supported by a strength others never saw being built. Chosen one. This is the hour where the journey begins to speak for itself, not with noise, not with announcement, but with presence. You have walked through seasons where nothing made sense, where obedience felt costly, where provision came quietly and just in time. And now, something has shifted. You are no longer asking, will God sustain me? You are living as proof that He already has. This is what it means to be crowned not with attention, but with authority. A crown is not first placed on the head. It is formed in hidden places, in restraint, in patience, in nights when no one clapped for your faith, in mornings when you chose obedience again without fresh confirmation. Heaven does not rush crowning because it is not decorative. It is functional. You are being trusted with weight. There is a calm about you now that did not exist before. Not because life became easy, but because fear lost its voice. You still face uncertainty, but it no longer commands you. You still plan, but you no longer panic. This is the mark of someone who has learned where their supply truly comes from. People may not know your full story, but they feel the effect. Your presence steadies rooms. Your words carry clarity. Your decisions hold integrity. This is influence without performance, leadership without striving, testimony without self-promotion, as Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 33. But seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Notice the order. Seeking comes first. Addition follows, not instantly and not theatrically, faithfully. Bring this into ordinary life, at work. You no longer chase visibility. You contribute with excellence and let God handle outcomes. When recognition comes, you receive it without clinging. When it delays, you do not shrink. That balance is rare and powerful. In finances, you steward wisely without obsession. Money becomes a tool, not a ruler. You are generous when prompted, disciplined when required, and peaceful in both. That freedom is worth more than any number. In family and relationship, you stop trying to rescue everyone. You show up faithfully, speak truth gently, and trust God with what you cannot fix. This protects your heart and honors their process. This is what it means to be a living testimony. Not perfection, but alignment. Not constant victory, but consistent faith. Some who once doubted you will watch quietly. Others will ask questions, but a few will mock. Let them. Your life is no longer an argument, it is evidence. And evidence does not shout, it stands. There is humility in this crown. You remember the waiting. You remember the fear. That memory keeps you compassionate. You do not look down on those still searching. You recognize yourself in them. And this is how God multiplies impact through empathy, not ego. Now imagine your journey as a long road at dusk. You are walking forward in dumb, not rushed, not lost. Along the path are markers, moments, words, reminders that helped you continue when vision was limited. Some pass without noticing, others pause, touch them, and realize they are not alone. If this message has given language to something you could not explain, you may leave a quiet trace below, like carving a symbol on the road, so others know someone walked here before them. If it warmed you, you may pass it along, the way fire is shared without growing smaller. And if this path feels true to your spirit, you are welcome to stay near it, returning whenever you need direction, not out of duty, but because the journey feels lighter when you are not walking alone. These are not demands, they are invitation, gentle ones, voluntary ones. Before we close, sit with one question: what kind of testimony do I want my life to speak when no one hears my voice? You are not chasing destiny anymore. You are walking in it, quietly, faithfully, crowned not by the world, but by heaven. And the journey continues not because you are unfinished, but because there is more light ahead. Walk forward with humility, not hesitation. What has been entrusted to you now requires steady hands and a listening heart. You will sense when to speak and when to remain silent. Wisdom will guide your timing more than urgency ever could. Do not fear quieter seasons ahead. Silence is not absence, it is often refinement. In stillness, your roots deepen, your motives clarify, and your strength becomes less visible but more reliable. What grows unseen will later hold visible weight. You will encounter others still searching for what you have found. Let compassion lead you. Your role is not to convince, but to reflect. Sometimes the greatest invitation is simply a life that breathes peace without explanation. Carry this journey lightly. You are not proving anything anymore. You are becoming. Step by step, day by day, heaven continues its work, shaping a life that can hold blessing, authority, and grace without losing its soul. Let this ending remain open. The way real journeys are, not everything needs a conclusion wrapped in certainty. Some truths are meant to travel with you, unfolding slowly as life provides the questions. Take what resonated. Leave what did not. There is no pressure to carry more than your heart is ready to hold. If something in these words felt useful, like a small tool placed quietly in your hands, you are free to pass it along. Not to persuade anyone, not to prove a point. Simply as one traveler offering another a compass they found helpful. And if nothing here felt shareable, that is also enough. Growth is not measured by outward response. What matters more is what stays with you when the screen goes dark. Perhaps it was a sentence that softened your breathing. Perhaps a reminder that steadied your thoughts. Perhaps a quiet permission to trust again, or to rest without guilt. Hold that gently. You do not need to announce it. You do not need to explain it. Some things grow best in private. Life will continue to test what you trust. There will be days when clarity fades and confidence feels thin. In those moments, return to whatever grounded you hear, not the words themselves, but the truth behind them. Truth has a way of resurfacing when you need it most. You are allowed to walk forward at your own pace. You are allowed to question without quitting. You are allowed to outgrow what once sustained you. None of that disqualifies you. It refines you. And if one day you find yourself remembering this moment not vividly but faintly, like a familiar path recalled at dusk, let that be enough. Let it remind you that you were not alone when you needed steadiness, and that guidance can arrive quietly, without demand. The road does not end here. It widens, it turns, it waits. Take what touched you. Leave the rest in peace.